Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Qwest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And glad to have you along with us once again as we continue our adventure into the world of the outdoor lifestyle, outdoor passions, outdoor I don't know, hunting, fishing, shooting, and trapping. But what is it? They are more than hobbies, right? Our hunting and fishing passions, our passion for the outdoors is more than a hobby. It is indeed a passion, but is it a lifestyle? I think it's a lifestyle. I think it's a passion. I think it's part of our history and tradition. And that's why I feel so blessed every week to be here at this microphone in this studio for 3 hours talking about it. Because I think our way of life needs all the promotion and all the encouragement that we can get these days. Because there is no doubt that this way of life is under attack, whether blatantly by the anti-hunters or more of a concealed threat, a veiled threat. It's not a veiled threat, by such things as cutting off funding for hunter education classes, threatening our schools that have trap shooting teams, that if you continue to have a trap shooting team, you will lose your federal funding. Well, you know, public schools faced with that option have only one choice. I don't know, we were having a discussion during our Behind the Mic segment before I started to record the show. And I would encourage you, if you are into such things, live streams and such, that you would join me every Wednesday morning at 8:45 for a live look behind the scenes from the Outdoor Magazine radio show, and every Wednesday night at 7 for our Wednesday night live streams. Last week, we were at the Michigan brand plant in Bay City. Nick Grillo was my tour guide. He showed us how they make those very tasty Mike Avery Hunter Sticks. Just remember, for every bag of Mike Avery Hunter Sticks that you buy, an angel gets its wings. No, I can't say that. I guess that's a little... that's a little much. I can't say that. I have not been fishing again this last week, and I am jonesing to get out there bad, but it's just not going to happen for a while. The big wedding coming up next weekend. My daughter Shelby getting married down in Detroit. Looking forward to that. But my fishing activities have been kind of curtailed a little bit. I did have a chance to get out this last week and do some outdoor-related activities, though. Food plots. My son James and grandson Addison and I went out to some leased property that we have. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Pam. We appreciate access to your beautiful piece of heaven. And since you can't bait anymore, and the more I think about this and the more I see it, I'm not convinced, and I'm no biologist, but I am not convinced that baiting is a real big factor in the spread of CWD. That's just based on what I see anecdotally. And again, I'm no expert. I'm no biologist. I will certainly go along with what the DNR biologists say, the experts. I just feel like the trade-off here, you know, if you would allow people to bait in the Lower Peninsula in limited quantities, I think you would allow people to harvest more deer, especially during archery season. You would allow people to position deer so they can get a better shot. But that's just me. But since we can't bait, what are the options? Food plots. Now, not everybody can do food plots. You have to have access to property because you can't put a food plot on state land. So you have to have access to some property. You have to have the resources, the tools to buy the seed and the equipment to put it in. So it's not for everybody. So I think it's somewhat discriminatory. But my son James rented a tractor this year. Last year we put him in, when I say we, it's James doing most of the work, Addison doing a lot of the work, and me sitting back providing moral support and doing a little bit of work. So we put in more food plots this year. We put in 6 food plots. The first one, no problems. We had tilled this up last year, so we knew all about it, good to go. The second one was a clearing that still had ferns about 3 feet high. Now, James had gone in there about a week before with some glyphosate, some Roundup, and sprayed everything off. And this particular food plot, for whatever reason, didn't die off. So we're looking at a clearing that is primarily ferns about 3 feet high. And Addison's on the tractor with the cultivator behind her, trying to chew this stuff up. James and I are walking the food plot looking for, stones or sticks or whatever to get out of the way. But we didn't canvass the entire food plot, and this is a mistake. I admit this. This is on our shoulders, my shoulders. Okay, I'll take this on my shoulders because I know better. I didn't walk the perimeter of the food plot to look for potential danger. James and I have our back to Addison. She's on the tractor, basically brush hogging or cultivating down these ferns and digging up the top couple of inches of soil. We hear her yell, turn around, and the tractor has rolled over. That is one of the most terrifying things I have ever gone through in my life, because in my mind, I'm flashing back to when I was a kid growing up on the farm and all the farming accidents we had with people rolling tractors over. I lost a classmate in high school by rolling a tractor over. So it was terrifying. We run over to the tractor. Addie, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And she's kind of in a little bit of shock, right? She's scared. So she doesn't say anything right away. Addie, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. James was able to reach in there, turn the tractor off, so the cultivator's not spinning in the background here. She gets out of the tractor. She gets off the tractor where I'm standing. She's standing, right? Obviously nothing's obviously broken. No blood. Turns out, because I'll take responsibility, because I know better, but I had a mental lapse. I didn't walk the perimeter of that food plot and check for holes. Addison, driving through 3-foot high ferns, drove that thing into a hole and rolled the tractor over. Now, God was watching out for us because Addison had put her seatbelt on. Now, I would never think of putting a seatbelt on while driving a tractor. Addison put her seatbelt on. So when the tractor rolled, the seatbelt held her in her seat and kept her from falling out or being thrown out and maybe ending up underneath that tractor. The other thing was this rental tractor had a steel cage over it that prevented it from rolling all the way over. God was watching out for us. So I share that story as a lesson that we can't let our guard down. We can't, and I don't want to be Safety Sam here, But when you're on the water or in the woods, and when you're hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, there is a tendency, because it is the activities. They are the activities that we enjoy so much, and we can take a big breath and relax and not have to worry about everything else. We still have to worry about doing things the right way. We ended up righting the tractor. We had to take a tow strap from my truck, wrap it around a tree, hook it to the tractor. We were able to right it to get it back up. The tractor was fine. Addie was fine. And we continued on with the day. And we got a lot of work done. But it was scary. I will admit, I was scared. I was scared there for a minute. I was scared because I didn't know what I was looking at. So let's learn from that. Let's all learn from it. And just take our time. Be a little extra careful. Speaking of situations in which we are in the outdoors and things went south, after the break, my buddy Lance Valentine is going to join us to talk about a situation he had on the Angler Qwest on Saginaw Bay. Then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews talking about their big outdoor weekend coming up. In hour number 2, Brian Mastenbrook of the DNR. The early season elk hunt is just around the corner. We'll talk about that and Michigan elk in general. Joe Robinson from the DNR on the early season waterfowl hunts. In our third hour, Matt Taggett of Rec Broadheads. If you want to get a discount on Rec, go to the website, recbroadheads.com. Use the promo code Avery15. And then Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar wraps it all up. That's all coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your mid-Michigan tracker and Angler Qwest and Polar Craft headquarters as well. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Linwood Beach, also the home port of Captain Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com, when he is fishing Saginaw Bay. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Lance, welcome back, buddy. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate you checking in with me, yeah.
Well, and I'm checking in because I want to talk about a situation you had on Saginaw Bay. In the previous segment, Lance, you weren't on, but I was telling about a situation we had while putting in food plots with my granddaughter, and she tipped over a tractor, and it was very scary, and it made me think, well, you got to be careful out there. And then I heard about your situation on Saginaw Bay, and I said, okay, this has got to be a theme for this week's radio show. Tell me what happened, Lance.
I don't know all the details, but what I can tell you is we were coming in, it's been a couple weeks ago now, Saturday morning, after a charter. It was, 12:30, 1 o'clock. The waves were pretty good. They were, 2.5 foot rollers. We were coming back into Linwood Beach. We were coming with the waves and came down on a wave and physically felt and heard something hit the bottom of the Angler Qwest. I don't know if the rest of my crew kind of heard it or felt it, but I definitely did. It instantly triggered something in my mind that said, that's not right. I slowed the boat down a little bit, didn't feel anything too bad. It didn't get the engine. So I took back off, but as I started getting closer and closer to Linwood Beach, I felt like the boat was kind of lifting a little bit to the port. But that happens sometimes. I looked, and I had 5 guests on the boat. 4 of them were on the port side of the boat. One was on the starboard side of the boat, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's kind of our issue here. And pulled into my slip, and as I was hooking up the port rear cleat on the Angler Qwest, I'm like, my port tune was definitely staying a little bit lower in the water. Went up to take the fish up to my truck to get them cleaned, and by the time I came back to the boat to grab some things. We definitely had a problem. Ran into the woods back in the back there of Linwood Beach Marina, grabbed my trailer, hooked it up. Had another one of the captains there, Dick Donovan, was nice enough. He was right there. He grabbed the truck and trailer, ran it over to the boat ramp. And by the time I got it to the boat ramp, the port side, the water was just about up to the deck on the back port side. Got on the trailer. Tons of underskin damage, whatever I hit, completely tore the underskin off the bottom of the boat between the middle and the port tune. Port tune obviously was leaking, and you could hear water coming out of the middle tune. So we hit something. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't. My gut tells me it wasn't just a piece of wood, because I don't think a piece of wood would have done that much damage to the tunes, the way the tunes, the way the tunes are built, as tough as they're built. I don't think it was that. I don't know what it was. But we definitely hit something coming in, and we've had the boat on the trailer ever since, waiting for insurance, all other stuff to kind of happen to get new tunes put on.
Well, but everybody's okay. I mean, everybody's okay.
Yes, everybody is okay. We were maybe a mile and a half from Linwood Beach. Nothing really ever got to the point where I thought, hey, we're going to be in trouble, we're going to need to call somebody, and never got to that point. And really, honestly, it didn't become an issue until we tied up. So I think as we were moving, whatever we hit, as we were moving, the access to let water into the port tune was actually above the water line most of the time. But once it set, I think it just filled up, that fast. So, yeah, we were never in danger. I was close enough. There was actually one of the charter guys was right behind me, so I had somebody if something did happen right there. Never. Even got to the point, Mike. I never even thought about grabbing the life jackets. It never got to the point where I was ever concerned about it. Other than what did I hit? I got to figure out what happened. Before the next trip that afternoon. But it was never where I felt unsafe, for sure.
All right, so you're a mile and a half offshore. So for people who don't know that area, how deep of water is that right there?
We had just come out of 20. We were just kind of sliding up into about 18, 19 feet of water. We had just come out of that deeper bowl there where it's 21, 22, and just come up into about 19.
And how fast were you running?
When we hit that, we were probably doing mid-30s, 33, 34 mile an hour.
So you were moving.
Oh, I was moving. Yeah, we had a nice little rhythm with the waves. The waves were just the perfect height and the perfect distance apart to get the boat on top, and just kind of let the waves kind of help you ride in. And I was actually just kind of on, I'm going to say autopilot. I wasn't on autopilot itself, but I was just kind of on, cruise control.
Sure.
It's something I've done. I can't tell you how many thousands of hours I've driven the boat, boat like that. I'm like, man, we had a good morning. We were driving in, had an afternoon charter with some friends I was looking forward to, and just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, bang, and I'm like, okay, something happened. It didn't affect the boat fast enough for me to know that something bad had happened right then. But like I said, by the time we got to the marina, there was definitely an issue that needed to be addressed.
On my list, I guess I have a list of worries, right? When I go on the water, of things that could happen. It's not at the front of my list, but it's in the back of my mind. And when you're out there in a chop, you can't see as well as if it's dead calm flat. And one of my worry things is running into something out in the middle of the bay in a chop that shouldn't be there. And you did it, Lance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I like to think I'm a very, very, very safe boater, a very alert boater. And, whatever I hit, I never saw. So I don't know if it was something that was a little bit under the water. And as we came down off the wave, we happened to hit it. I don't know if it was a floating, big giant floating piece of debris that you just couldn't see. I don't know. I really, really don't know what it was. And by the time it happened, and I kind of realized that we did hit something. I sure as heck wasn't going to turn around and go, kind of see what it was. My concern right then was getting the boat to safety and getting an evaluation of the boat and kind of seeing where we're at.
So now that it's up on shore and on a trailer, can you see you said you can see the damage. Can you see a hole in the tube?
I can see where the water was pouring out when I had it on the trailer. I can't quite see the damage because the way the trailer is, I can't quite see. The trailer is basically two wooden 2x6s on both sides, so I really can't see up underneath. But you could definitely see, the trailer obviously leaves water because it does have carpet. But there was a spot that was definitely water pouring out of somewhere much more drastic than just from the carpet. So I'm assuming there's a pretty good hole, and I could hear. Same thing with the middle tune. There's a couple spots where it seems that there's more water coming out, but I could feel it I could hear it kind of burping, like it was kind of letting air in and trying to push something out. So definitely got the port tune and the middle tune. So we're looking at a complete changeover of 3 tunes, since the new tunes are a little bit different. We're going to be looking at 3 new tunes, I guess.
Whenever I hear about something like this, I try to think, okay, what can we learn? What can we do different? Lance, you couldn't have done anything different. This is just one of those things that happened, in my mind, at least.
Yeah, and I like I do with my fishing. One of the things I do as soon as I get back from fishing and get a second to breathe, one of the things I do is, what did I miss today? I'm always kind of self-evaluating, and that actually has been on my mind for the last 2.5 weeks. Is what did I miss? Did I do something that put myself and my crew in danger? Was there something that I just missed? And I can't come up with anything. I said I had the trim right, I had the speed right, I had everything. We were with the waves. Everybody was sitting down. Everybody was safe. It was just a normal everyday. We've done it 10,000 times coming in from. And for whatever reason, there just happened to be something in that, 2 foot by 2 foot section of the river. There just happened to be, or lake, so that would be something that we came down on, and 10 feet to the left or 10 feet to the right, we don't hit it. I guess you can look at it that way. You can also look at it as, 15 feet further back in the boat, maybe it hits the prop, and now I'm out there in some pretty legit ways without a motor. So, all in all, I guess it is what it is. I don't think we did anything wrong. I don't know if there's a lesson there. I think the lesson would be if you do feel like you have damage, like I did. I sure as heck wasn't going to set the boat down. The boat was up, the boat was running, the boat was moving. The boat was not taking out enough water to cause damage or to cause danger. And at that point, I think the thing is keep the boat moving and get as close as you can to safety. So if that does happen, you're closer to safety, you're in shallower water, and you're closer to help.
I think one interesting point here is on these Angler Qwest, these tri-tunes, you've got 3 big tubes underneath you. If you would have done this in a single hull V-bottom boat, it could have ended up differently. I like to say that these big tri-tunes are much safer in some regards, and I think this is a good example of that.
Without question. If I would have hit that same object in my polar craft or in a fiberglass boat, we'd be talking about a rescue and a boat sinking and a rescue and how to handle that more than we'd be talking about. I got to put a couple new pontoons on the boat. So, yeah, I 100% believe that. Someone who spent tens of thousands of hours on the water. Somebody made that comment. Obviously, those comments. Well, if you wouldn't have had a pontoon, stop. If I wouldn't have had a pontoon, you would have been picking me up out of the water. I would have, lost fishing tackle, and no, it's a regular boat. It would have been much worse, much scarier, and I think a lot worse situation than it was being in a pontoon and having basically a tune and a half that was still working, kept us afloat. So, I definitely would not have wanted to experience that in a regular boat.
Hang tight, Lance. We're talking with Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com, teachinfishin.com, about a situation he had on Saginaw Bay where he hit something on his Angler Qwest. He took on water. He made it back to shore. Everything's fine. Everything's fine in part because Lance is a seasoned captain, a veteran on the water who knows how to handle things and keep his head. So now his boat's on a trailer up on shore. The good news is, I think, Lance will probably end up with a new tube design, which is even safer than the tubes that was under the old boats. We'll talk about that and more after the break here on Outdoor Magazine with Captain Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots. You still got time to get your food plots in. I wouldn't drag your feet, but you still have time. Killer Food Plots, family-owned, Michigan-based. You know I love that. The website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. They can help you with consulting. They can help you with seed. They can help you with property management. They can even put your food plots in if you get to them in time. Killerfoodplots.com is the website, killerfoodplots.com. While you're online, I would encourage you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head over to teachinfishin.com. You will find more valuable information and a wealth of knowledge at teachinfishin.com than just about any place else online that I can think of. Teachinfishin.com is the website of Captain Lance Valentine. In a previous segment, Lance was talking about hitting something with his Angler Qwest on Saginaw Bay. Lance, when I heard about this, I offered you my boat to use, and you said, no, I appreciate that, but I'm kind of on hold for a while. So what's your status now, Lance?
So right now we are actually waiting for a final conversation with the insurance company. I know that I talked to Brad up at Angler Qwest. I think they've already started the process of building 3 new tunes, and as soon as we get the okay from the insurance company and that kind of all works out, we'll be getting 3 new tunes on them, and then we'll kind of be, if nothing else, getting ready for our October, our late October venture down to Lake Erie. That turns into our November 4-day fishing trip and a little bit of guiding in November, Lake Erie. So that's kind of where we're at. I'd like to get it, hopefully it comes back a little earlier. We can get a little bit of that late September Saginaw Bay fishing in, early October before we head to Erie. But right now my plan is just kind of be in the office, get some content done, get some stuff ready for show season, kind of take a little advantage of a couple extra weeks off I didn't know I was going to have off the water and get ready for believe it or not, get ready for this fall and get ready for 2024. It's coming fast. There's lots to get done.
Well, the good news is the tubes that you will get will be the new design, 25-inch 3-sealed chambers in each tube, and that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. You and I have been with Angler Qwest for I don't know how many years now, and each time we've gotten new boats, the tube design has just gotten better and better and better, and the new tube design being 25 inches, being sealed up a little better, the way that they're actually putting the baffles in, completely different design than what we have now. So things like this may only flood one compartment now as opposed to flooding the whole tune where, it can be kind of drained, welded, and back on the water a whole lot quicker than having to replace the tune. So, as always, the guys up at Angler Qwest, up at Apex there in St. Louis, they're just doing a great job of listening to what the anglers are doing, watching what's happening with the performance of the boat. Brad's on his boat pretty regular basis and just always doing what they can to make this it's already the best fishing pontoon, one of the best fishing platforms on the market, but always doing what they can to make it just make it that much better. And in this situation, make it safer.
Well, if you're going to have something like this happen, this was actually a pretty good time of year for you to have it happen, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're going to end up losing. I think what we had on the books, I think we ended up losing like 11 trips. Some of those we would have lost to weather anyway. Most of my customers, I have 2 customers that were in from out of state planning a vacation. We're not going to get a chance to get back with them, but most of the other folks that we lost trips, they're like, hey, we'll do it in the fall or we'll schedule it for next summer. One of the advantages of having, 20 years of charter experience and having relationships with your customers and them knowing, who you are and trusting what you tell them. And it's a big hit this time of year because, in this kind of business, if you do what I do, there's not a lot of money coming in right now. So, losing 11, 12, 15 trips is a big deal. But I'd rather do that and have the boat 100% ready to go than not. Again, you reached out, Doug Ward reached out, a couple guys reached out, and it's really tough to fish out of somebody else's boat.
Oh, I know.
Right?
I know. Yep.
You know, you've got your stuff in specific spots. I've got mine, getting all my gear. So from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the guys reaching out. And but it's just kind of tough, and it just kind of was just, you know what? Maybe this is a sign to just shut it down for the year. Let's regroup. Let's get going again. And we'll be back at her in the fall.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying about fishing somebody else's. But you know, I haven't been out for a couple of weeks, but I feel like we're in a little bit of a lull right now. The summertime fishing, the hot summertime fishing is again, I haven't been out in 2 weeks, but I feel like kind of slow right now, but it's going to pick up as we get into the fall.
Yeah, as we start to get, you know, I'm sitting here right now watching a big giant storm come to my house here, and well, not through the house, but around the house.
If so, you are having a rough couple of weeks.
Having a rough year. But yeah, you know, the water temperatures, you know, are starting to peak again. You know, we've got peak bait levels. It's just, and that's one of the reasons that I wasn't excited. You know, if this would have happened at the time of year, or if the bite would have been on and you know, we were catching 25, 30, 35 fish a trip.
All right, listen.
Grab the boat and went fishing.
All right, Lance, listen, I got to let you go. I'm glad things are fine. Lance Valentine, Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com. Another story of how things can go wrong when you're enjoying our hunting and fishing passions, our outdoor pursuits. Just something to keep in the back of your mind, right? Not the front of your mind. You can't dwell on things. You can't worry about things. But just think of what would happen, you know, what you would do if something does happen, and how you can prevent things from happening, from bad things from happening. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews, he's getting ready for good things, the big outdoor weekend coming up very, very soon. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set, warm, waterproof, water-resistant, wind-resistant, well-made, in big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, and just snap on and zip on an outer liner, an outer layer, an outer shell is what it's called, with a different camo pattern. It's ingenious. The website, VersaSkins.com, and by the way, VersaSkins owner Paul Perrone will be at the big Woods and Water Outdoor Weekend coming up, well, the first weekend after Labor Day. Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews is probably really looking forward to the second weekend after Labor Day, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Is that the case, Tom?
Hey, Mike, we can't wait. We really can't. Not that we want to get it over.
No, I know.
No, I think we've. It's been a real exciting year, and we've lined up some great vendors like Paul and VersaSkins and the Eastern Michigan Fairgrounds in Emily City should be packed. And I think if you love the outdoors, you should be able to find something that you might want to take home with you on that weekend, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, for sure.
If you can go to the outdoor weekend and not find something that piques your interest or curiosity, I would be shocked, because I don't care what aspect of the outdoors you're into, you guys have something to cover it.
Exactly right, Mike. We were just talking about, we came up with a little marketing scheme with it, if it floats or rolls, or if it has pontoons or wheels or a haul, you'll find it at the outdoor weekend. I mean, ATVs, UTV, ORVs, side-by-sides, boats, trailers, tractors, mowers, anything in that line, then the power sport line certainly will be on display with some of the great vendors we have there this weekend for sure. And as Paul said, they're if you're looking for blinds, tree stands, ladder stands, no problem. The outdoor weekend will have some there for you too. We've got some fantastic vendors from the great state of Michigan. Rainey's Hunting Center always puts on a fantastic garage sale, he calls it. He's got great deals on a lot of firearms, ammunitions, blinds too, and he'll take over one building himself and have that going. Plus, on top of that, we got places like VF Sports will be there with a big white tent full of great hunting equipment. Frank's as always comes, and one thing about Frank's Great Outdoors, they get you prepared for another sport, too, a little later in the season. They bring a lot of their ice fishing.
Let's not even go there yet, Tom.
Yeah,
Come on now.
We won't only want to talk about the weather this year at all. It's been so bizarre. But, yeah, so we've got everybody. Freeway's there. Chapman's will be there. Power Sports is there. Ray C's. We got ball equipment. We got Tri-County equipment. Kurt Supply, Grace Performance. So there certainly is not a lack of things to look at for sure.
I don't think that there is another show in Michigan that is a bigger outdoor show that brings in more people over a 3-day period. I mean, a lot of people have tried to duplicate and do what you guys have done, but you've been doing it for so long, you've got it down to a science. In my mind, it is the single biggest outdoor event in the state.
Oh, that's great to hear, Mike. Yeah, we do. 37 years it took to get there, and I surely wouldn't want to start one today fresh.
No.
Yeah, you're right. We've got tradition behind us, and we've got the Woods and Water publication behind us, so that helps a great deal. So very fortunate.
So details. It's
details. Yes, new this year. We have a Paul Bunyan Lumberjack show coming for the whole weekend. They'll be doing 2 shows Friday evening, 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, just to give you a little break from looking at all the product that's there. You can pull up, sit in the bleachers and get entertained. They'll be doing all the traditional lumberjack, log rolling, axe throwing, cross-cutting sawing, the chopping competitions, and of course the popular dragster chainsaw competition. They'll be doing that to entertain us all weekend. We've talked before in the past about we're really proud of our deer hunting seminars that we've got lined up with some of the greatest bull hunters and deer hunters in the state of Michigan, with John Eberhardt leading us off, Adam Lewis, and Tony LaPratte. You can't get much better than that. And then to top it off on Saturday, we hit it with a great Steve Francis from the Country Smokehouse, who does a fantastic job of actually field dressing a deer for us. And he shows some tips and techniques and some things to watch for, some things to do. And he'll get into processing your own meat, but also knowing what to do if you do take it to a processor. You should have an idea of what they're going to do and what you want them to do and what you don't want them to do. And he'll itemize that all out with his seminar on Saturday afternoon.
Biggest outdoor show in the state from Woods and Water News, the website woodsandwaternews.com, and also outdoorweekend.net, outdoorweekend.net. Thanks, Tom. Have a good show. We'll talk again. Tom Campbell of Woods and Water News, outdoorweekend.net, outdoorweekend.net, or woodsandwaternews.com. If you haven't been to that show, you need to go. It is absolutely huge. We'll take a break for the top of the hour here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Brian Mastenbrook talks about the Michigan elk herd, the early elk hunt, which honestly is coming up at the end of August here, and lots more. That's coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Qwest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And I always say I do think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. Maybe there's a local news, weather, sports. Maybe there's even the ads. Maybe there's a sale you want to take advantage of. Plus, the broadcast stations get the content of the show before the podcast version is uploaded. But isn't it nice to know that if you can't listen to the radio show, that there is a podcast version available? Now, you can hear that podcast about anywhere. It's on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, yada, 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 yada. Everywhere. If you can listen to a podcast, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. I even put it on YouTube every week as well. I do like podcasting, though. I mean, radio is my primary gig, but I do like podcasting. In fact, each month I do podcasts for Offshore Tackle, Angler Qwest boats, Primal Outdoors, and Polar Craft boats. You can hear those often on my Facebook page and on those companies' respective Facebook pages and websites as well. Regardless, though, of when you are hearing my voice, how you are hearing my voice, I have to thank you. As Ken said in the intro to the show, I've been doing this for a long time, and I would not be able to continue to do it without your support. If you weren't listening to the radio show, if you weren't listening to the podcast, if you weren't doing business with my advertising partners, I'd be in a rocking chair somewhere with my feet up smoking a cigar. Well, I do that sometimes anyway, but I'm still working because I love what I do. I love this great state of Michigan. I love what we have to offer here. You know, one of the very cool things about this state that it still blows my mind that not everybody is aware of. We have an elk herd here. A very vibrant and viable and beautiful and wonderful elk herd. Brian Mastenbrook is a DNR wildlife biologist who has been studying this herd, keeping track of this herd, protecting this herd for a long, long time. And he's with me now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Brian, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. I'm well. How about you?
You know, I'm doing just great. It's hard to believe that summer is basically over. Fall is just around the corner. As an example of that, you've got your early season elk hunt literally just around the corner.
Yeah, next week.
Next week.
Starts.
Wow. I suspect you hear this a lot too, Brian, that people say, we have a Michigan elk herd? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I hope less people say that than they did when I started. But, yeah, we do still hear it, and people regularly come out to our office and say, where can we see it? We want to see the elk herd, and it's like, it's not quite that way. They're free-ranging animals over about 1,000 square miles, so we give them tips, of course, to where they might sight some. But, yeah, there's more education to do, as always, but I think we're making inroads.
Well, so. I certainly do. I certainly do believe you're making inroads. How long have you been working with that elk herd, Brian?
Since 98. I've been working up here since 98. I first worked on a research project with them in 84 and 85. So, yeah, quite a while.
How has the herd changed over all those years?
Well, it was quite a bit smaller when I started in 84 and 85. That was just when the oil and gas controversy was starting in the pigeon, and this research project was look and see what elk habitat use was like, with that disturbance going on. So, actually, it was 82, 83, and the first hunt was 84. So it was before the first hunt. The animals were much more used to people. They weren't nearly as scared of people as they are now. And it's not like they're scared of people now, but they move away when they see trucks, and they move away when they see people, and they had no reason to do that before that. So there's been that change. Of course, the forest has grown up for 40 years. Openings have filled in. We've kept some openings open. But and the land just changes, and you can really see it, I guess, over 40 years. It's places where I hunted grouse as a research student, I'm able to hunt them again because the habitat's gone through a full cycle.
So you have a very personal and intimate relationship with that country there.
Yes. Yep. For a long time, it's been an important place for me.
So what an honor then to be the guy who, at least in my mind, is basically overseeing this herd. Good for you.
Yeah, thanks. And it is. It's a stewardship responsibility that I, try and take seriously and think of how we can do things better, what's good, what's not quite so good, and keep making changes to make things better. So it's a lot of fun.
Brian, some people would say, well, if we have this wonderful resource, why do you let people hunt them? If they're so cool and so magnificent and so wonderful, why do you let people go out there and shoot them? I know the reason, but why don't you explain it to the rest of us?
Well, that's, in short, it's our method of population control. It's the only way we control the population. And without that, there would be too many for the range. They would degrade the range, make it so fewer could exist there. They would start spreading out. They would be crossing roads. They would be going to apple orchards. They would start to be a negative in many people's minds. And we don't want that. We work to keep elk and elk management in a positive light. And hunting is a big part of that. I mean, the hunters who get the licenses are just excited as anything. They really enjoy it, and so it's just we really do need to hunt them to keep this land good and to keep the elk there.
So, what is the size of the herd these days?
It's a little bit above goal. Our goal is 500 to 900, and it's probably in the range of 1,100 to 1,200. We increased permits a couple of years ago, and we've got a survey coming up this winter, and we'll check and see if we've kind of notched it down a little bit. We've been trying to moderate. Again, our hunt is how we control the population, and we've been trying to. We added some permits, a couple of years ago, and we're trying not to do the big swings of add 200, then go back to 200 fewer. We're trying to do a soft landing down into that bull range. Haven't achieved that yet, but that's what we're working on.
So how many hunters will you have out there, or how many permits did you let out for this early season?
100 for the early season, and then 160 in December.
So 260 people across this entire state. Your odds, I feel like your odds of getting an elk tag are really slim. At least that's the way I feel personally.
Yeah, well, me too. I've been applying since I could, and I haven't got one yet. Our applicants have gone back up a little bit too. They were hanging around 50,000. Then over a decade or so, they tailed down. But the last 4 years, anyway, they've been coming back up towards that 50,000 point. So yeah, 260 out of 50,000. That's not real good odds.
And of that 260, how many are bull tags?
80 are bull.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a tremendous resource. It's centered around, still, I believe, the Pigeon River Forest, right?
Yes.
And that's where you want to keep them primarily?
Yeah, we've got an elk range that's outside of that, but yeah, we do want to keep the majority of them in that area. Again, because of those things I mentioned earlier, crop damage, crossing roads, being in neighborhoods. We don't want any of that. That just leads to negative interactions between people and wildlife, and so trying to reduce the chance for that to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a complete sense. We're talking with Brian Mastenbrook, a DNR wildlife biologist. The website for the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Brian, we got to take a break. Hang on, but we'll bring Brian back in just a minute. I want to talk more about this elk herd. I want to talk specifically about the critters themselves. I mean, like Brian said earlier, where do you see them? If you're driving up from downstate, well, no, if you're driving from anywhere in the state and you head into the Pigeon River, where do you go to see them? What are the odds of seeing them? Can you actually see them and hear them bugle? How cool would that be? And what are the problems? I mean, we've got deer all over the place. Does an elk create more problems than deer? Well, Brian's the guy to talk to. And we will wrap up that conversation after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Then following up on that, Joe Robinson, also from the DNR, checks in talking about our early waterfowl seasons. And we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery segment, coming up in hour 2 of Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine, speaking of above the bridge, brought to you by Rapid River Knives. You know I love my Rapid River knife. I have one in my pocket right now. I carry it all the time. It's a handmade piece of art that is designed to be used. Company owner Chris Durson, he hates it when people buy these knives and say, it's so pretty, I'm going to put it up on a shelf. No, you use these things. They're, as I say, handmade. They have a lifetime guarantee. I would encourage you to stop by the showroom. On US 2, just east of Rapid River. It's a beautiful place. All kinds of cool mounts, big game mounts. Plus, you can see all the knives there. You can see knives being made. You can buy a knife and you can have it engraved while you're there. If you can't get to the shop, go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's rapidriverknifeworks.us. You can browse their selection there, and you can order online, rapidriverknifeworks.us. We're talking now with DNR wildlife biologist Brian Mastenbrook. Now, Brian has spent a lot of years working with and studying and protecting and promoting the Pigeon River elk herd. Brian, let's talk about the animals specifically. A big bull. What size are these animals?
Well, a real big one, a herd bull, will go over 1,000 pounds, live weight. More generally, they're 800-900, the adults, but we get some that are real long. That they're real big. They do lose these herd bulls lose 100 plus pounds between right now and the 1st of December. The rutting activity, they're not eating much. They're moving, they're fighting, they're doing all kinds of stuff, and they lose a lot of weight. But they start out bigger than that. Cows are smaller. 500 or so pounds is a big cow. More 350 maybe to 500, and a little bit over 500 is a big cow. So they're 2/3 the size of bulls generally.
When you say herd bull, what does that mean?
So that's a mature bull, 7 to 9 years old. That's the one who gathers the biggest harem, and that's a thing unique to elk. Deer don't do it, but elk gather a harem of cows in the fall. This is part of their rutting behavior, and they keep them with them as long as they can. So they're the biggest, fattest bulls out there, the ones that are herd bulls, for the biggest harems. So.
And the whitetail, the elk rut. I mean, that's coming on right now. It's just around the corner, isn't it?
Yeah. They're probably just starting to squeak a little bit. They'll be bugling more in a week. The peak of bugling is usually right around September 15th. So, yep, we're not too far away from it.
And can Can people drive into the Pigeon River Forest and see this behavior, or is it so remote that you're not going to find them?
No, you can see it. We've got viewing sites set up where we plant food plots basically and try and draw in cows, and then there will be bulls around a lot of times. Sometimes you just see cows and calves, but the other thing with the elk, especially at the viewing sites, is it's really good to stay there for an hour after dark, because that's when the bulls will start bugling. They know people are there and watching, and so they kind of hold off sometimes when that's going on. But an hour after dark or right at dawn, that's when you get a lot of bugling going on, and so you can certainly hear them, and you may see them in those places.
One last question, because I know I got to let you go here. Why are you worried about these elk getting out of the area? Because, as I said earlier, I mean, we've got deer all over the place. We see them out in farmers' fields. They cause some damage, but I suspect not to the extent that a herd of elk can cause.
Well, that's right. Elk are much more visible than deer. Elk eat a lot more. They're bigger. And we're kind of dealing with deer overpopulation in some areas. We can hardly control them with hunting anymore. And so you're getting disease, and that's another thing that we worry about with elk traveling is getting into the CWD area. We certainly don't want that.
Yeah.
We're bringing that back in. And I don't know if you've seen those pictures of elk out west in neighborhoods. Estes Park is kind of a poster child for that, but people get killed. These elk can be habituated just like any other animal. And again, elk in close proximity to humans, it's not a good mix.
I got you. All right, Brian, listen, I'm going to let you go. I know you got to get off to a meeting. I appreciate your time. Always a pleasure talking with you, and thanks for all the hard work you've done with that elk herd over the years.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Always good to talk to you, too.
I appreciate that very much. Brian Mastenbrook, DNR wildlife biologist. The website for the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. And Brian has a unique perspective on these critters because I feel like he spent his entire career working with them. He mentioned the fact that the first hunt was back in '84, the first modern-day hunt. If I remember correctly, I think there were a couple of hunts back in the late 60s, the mid to late 60s, but in the modern day, if you can call 1984 modern day, the first hunt was back in '84. I was at that first hunt. And it was kind of interesting because nobody knew what to expect. There was a certain, I don't want to say nostalgia involved in it, but there was, back then, you would see, in those first few years, right, the elk were like, they weren't used to getting shot, right? So they weren't real skittish. But those first couple of years, what we saw a lot was to recover the animals, people would take teams of horses out into the fields, into the Pigeon River, and pull the elk back with teams of horses. So that just kind of added to the whole experience. Also, as Brian said, the Michigan elk breeding season, the rut, is just getting ready to fire up. If you have not seen that, I would encourage you to make a trip to the Pigeon River Forest. There is no guarantee that you're going to see it, but if you drive around and spend enough time there, you are likely to run into it. What I did years ago, again, this was back in this is probably the mid 80s. It wasn't 90 yet. No, it's probably like 88 or so. I wanted to get video of elk. I knew, because I had some friends who were guides, of this one little clearing that the elk were coming into every morning. And I thought, okay, if I get in there early enough, I can get in there, I can get all set up, and I can get some video. Now, back then, our video equipment was different. We had a big video camera that weighed, 25 pounds or whatever. And then on your other shoulder was a record deck that weighed, another 15, 20 pounds or whatever. And there was a cord, a video cord, a power cord, whatever, that ran between them. So when you would fire these things up, you had to fire up the camera, turn on the camera, And then you had to put a tape in the machine, and you had to press the power button, and then the thing would cycle through. And the tape would come out of the cassette, it would wrap around the video head, and it would make a noise. It would go ka-chung, zzz, ka-chung. And when it made that last ka-chung, you were ready to go. You could press the record button on the camera. So anyway, I knew where these elk were coming into every morning. So I left my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. I drive to the Pigeon River Forest. I sneak into the woods, into this clearing. I get set up under a pine tree because this clearing was surrounded by, I think, white pines. I did. I brought a tripod with me. I set the camera up on a tripod. I spread the legs real wide so I could get the tripod nice and low. I'm sitting on the ground underneath a white pine. The camera is in front of me on a tripod, and the recorder is off to my left side. So I get in there real early. It was one of those very, very cool, both temperature-wise and aesthetically, very, very cool mid-September mornings. I got in there early enough where I think I actually fell asleep. So I'm just kind of laying there, kind of half dozing. And then before the sun comes up, I hear a bugle off in the distance, and I think, oh boy, this is going to get good. Hear another bugle, and I can hear them coming my direction. Now the thing about elk, in my mind, if you're close enough to them, to my senses, they smell like horses. So I'm sitting underneath this white pine tree. I got my video camera in front of me. The sun is behind me. The sun is going to rise behind me. So whatever early morning golden colored light it throws is going to be behind me and on my subject in front of me, the elk. It gradually gets lighter. The elk are moving into the clearing. I can see their shadows now. They're bugling. I can hear them breathing. I can hear them snorting. I get just enough light, because back then these cameras needed a lot of light. I get just enough light to turn the camera on. I turn the camera on. I press the power button on the recorder, and it goes, and it never made that last clunk. I power it down, turn it back on. No last clunk. The darn recorder wasn't working. It wouldn't thread the tape around the video head. Didn't have any cell phone. I couldn't record it with a cell phone. So I sat there for 2 hours in the middle of the Pigeon River Forest on a beautiful September morning with the sun behind my back, with a clearing full of elk in front of me, bugling, sparring, chasing cows. It was one of those days where it was cold, and when they would bugle, the steam would come out of their mouths, out of their nose. And this is happening like 30, 40 yards in front of me. And I couldn't get the stupid video recorder to turn on, the tape deck to turn on. I can see it in my mind's eye, but I can't show you the video, because there ain't none. Sure makes me appreciate the technology we have these days. I could have pulled my phone out of my pocket, got better quality video than I ever shot with that recorder. But it was fun to see. I just can't share it with you. We'll take a break here at the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Joe Robinson talking about the early waterfowl seasons here coming up very, very soon right here in the great state of Michigan. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning, a leader in the archery industry for more than 3/4 of a century. They continue to come up with new products, new manufacturing processes, even today, after more than 75 years. I suspect that as you are heading into the woods this fall, you have boning products somewhere on your rig. Either the whitetail woods or the target range, the archery range. You probably have boning products. If not, I would encourage you to check them out. Go to the website boning.com. That's BOHNING.com, boning.com. I have boning products on my crossbow rig, but they also make products for compound shooters and traditional archers as well. And again, target shooters and hunters. Boning.com is the website, boning.com. It is getting to be the fall hunting season. Just talking with Brian Mastenbrook about the early elk season kicks off here next week. The youth hunt is just around the corner. The early goose season coming up very soon to get rid of those big flying rats. Joe Robinson with the DNR along with us to talk more about the upcoming fall waterfowl seasons. Joe, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on, and good morning.
Hey, good morning to you as well. Joe, are you where are you at? Are you a biologist, a tech? What's your job?
I'm a wildlife biologist, but I'm actually the Southeast Regional Supervisor for the entire Southeast region that covers from Saginaw Bay down to Jackson, over to Monroe, up to Lake St. Clair. So I have the distinct honor and privilege of supervising the 5 gems of the Midwest, which mean the managed wetland areas like Shiawassee, Point Mouillet, Harson's Island, Nanquit Point, Fish Point, all the other coastal wetlands that are associated with my region. Just about over 200,000 acres we manage in the Southeast region for public land.
Wow. And what are the logistics on hunting in there? How do people? Is it a draw? Do you get tags ahead of time? How does that work?
Well, right now we have an application period going on August 1st to the 28th. At each of the managed wetland areas, there's a reserve hunt period. I've heard, over the last few years, I've heard people, express concerns to me like they don't want to drive 2 hours to one of these managed wetland areas and go through a drawing and not have a spot. So what we did is we changed that the last couple of years. This will be the third year of instituting this change. We have reserve hunts. You can apply August 1st to the 28th. It's going on right now. You can apply for one of the hunt periods, a morning hunt or afternoon hunt. For the new hunters that have never been to one of these areas, I would suggest an afternoon hunt, because you go there, you don't want to go there in the dark, not knowing where you're going, not knowing where the zones are and all that. So if you have an interest in apply, you'll get a good spot. There's generally 30, 35 parties only on the first 2 weekend reserve hunts. And it gives you a great opportunity to get there and get a good spot and have some hunting success and see lots of birds. These areas traditionally have a nice refuge that hold anywhere from 10 to 30, 35,000 ducks, depending on the timing of year. So there is a good chance you'll see a lot of ducks. It depends on your capability and your hunter, how good of a hunter you really are to, harvest some birds. But generally speaking, you get to see a lot of birds.
I really like your suggestion of coming in for an afternoon hunt. That's something I never thought of before. In my very, very limited waterfowl hunting experiences, I always went out with my buddies, and we went out first thing in the morning. In fact, I don't even know if an afternoon draw was offered at the time. Is that something new as well, Joe?
Oh, that's been around for a while. Obviously, things changed up during COVID, but we're getting back to some of the norm. But like I said, we've had some people come to me and say, hey, I'd really like to hunt some of these areas, but I don't want to drive all that way and not be guaranteed a spot. So we instituted the first 2 weekends. You apply, you're successful, you're guaranteed a spot. I have great staff out there, the wildlife technicians, wildlife assistants, and the biologists that run these, managed hunts. They're there to answer questions. Some places have photos of the zone, so you can actually take a picture with your phone as you're walking out to your zone. Or some areas you need a boat, some areas you need to maybe get by with a kayak or canoe. So really, there's a lot of information on our DNR website for each of these areas, and it talks about what to expect when you get there, what you need, all that kind of good stuff. All that information is available on our DNR website for each of the respective areas.
So that's what I was going to ask. You apply on the website. Can you also apply on the mobile app, or is it just the website?
Yes. Yep, I just applied yesterday myself.
Well, you should have an in. You shouldn't even have to apply.
No, I wish. No, we all have to apply. Hey,
Michigan has a real strong history and tradition of waterfowl hunting, don't we?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you think about the rich history. You think about all the duck clubs, the Millionaire Club at Point Mouillet, the Ford Marsh, where the President of the United States used to come and hunt. All the decoy carvers, all the call manufacturers, all that stuff. We have a long, rich history. Where the layout boat was designed in the lower Detroit River, there's a lot of rich history and traditions that are still continuing. But there used to be a lot of decoy carvers, a lot of call manufacturers throughout the state.
Well, Joe Robinson, I appreciate you keeping this waterfowl hunting history and tradition alive. I'll send people to the website, michigan.gov/DNR, to apply for these hunts. I appreciate your time. Have a good season.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Joe Robinson of the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. I love this idea of being able to, have a guaranteed spot. I have much respect for waterfowl hunters. They're a hardcore breed. They're a tough breed. And they love it. The folks I know who are into waterfowl hunting, it is a passion, it is an addiction, and it is a love. And I appreciate that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap up this second hour with this week's Ask Avery question, talking about how do you get a hunter safety certificate if you lost your original and maybe you took the course a few years ago. Well, I'll answer that and more right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WILS in Lansing, that's 1320 AM, WMLQ in Manistee, 97.7 FM. And let's see if we can go north of the bridge once again. Let's go to Manistee, WTIQ, 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoors men and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can send me a question, something you want me to answer directly, or perhaps something you want me to pass on to somebody else, maybe in MUCC or DNR, maybe somebody that you don't quite have access to that I might be able to reach. The best way to get these questions to me, send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. I occasionally get them via social media messaging platforms, but the best way, just trust me, the best way, send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's what Eric Edwards did. He sent me an email that said basically, hey, Mike, I was going to go out west on a hunt. And since I'd never had a license out there before, they needed for me to prove that I had a hunter safety a class in the past. He said, I've since some things have come up in the way, and I didn't make the trip, so I didn't follow up on this, but I'm still curious. He said, how do you get a certificate from a class you may have taken years and years ago? That's a good question, Eric, and one that I've actually heard from a lot of people. So just as an experiment, I actually did this through the app, the Michigan Huntfish app, for DNR app, which is a really, really nice app. I gotta give those folks a lot of credit. So since I'm already logged in there, and I'm going to open it up again myself here. Since I was already logged in, it says on the main page, safety certificates is an option on the lower right. I click on safety certificate, and I see that I was issued a hunter safety certificate on April 29th of 1972. Now, I don't actually know if that's the actual legitimate valid date, or if you just go back that far, they give you a date of 1972. So I click the reprint button on the app, and it sends the certificate to my email. So I pull up my email, Michigan Department of Natural Resources Law Enforcement Duplicate Certificate for Hunter Education, last name Avery, first name Michael, middle name. It's got my date of birth on there, my certificate number, and the date that it was completed. Because a hunter education course is required by all first-time hunters born after 1960. I was actually born before 1960. How cool is that? Again, this thing is dated 1972. Now, I tried doing it on the website, michigan.gov/DNR. Actually, I tried during the break here. And we got some kind of connection problem. I can't get into the DNR website either on my phone or my laptop. So I suspect you can do it from the website as well. So then I got thinking, okay, well, what other certificates do I have? When I was a kid, I took a boating safety class. That doesn't show up on the app, but there's the option to do a query and then send that request to the DNR. So I sent that off and said, is there a boating safety certificate in existence for me anywhere? Haven't heard back on that yet. But I think this is a very, very cool option to have. And this app, I don't know if you're into apps or not. If you are into apps, I would strongly encourage you to download this Michigan Hunt Fish app. It's really, you can do a lot of things with it. And as Joe was saying in our previous segment, you can also apply for the managed waterfowl hunts as well, right on the app. Now, speaking of hunter education, as we are recording the show right now, this whole concept of federal funding for schools that provide hunter education, archery in the schools program, high school trap shooting teams, if those schools offer those classes, they're going to lose their federal funding. That's still the case. What a shame. What a shame. I know the high school that my grandson goes to, Carter, and I don't blame them. If they say, okay, you've got to drop these programs, including your trap team, or you're going to lose your federal funding, they don't have a choice. What a joke. What a joke. And in my opinion, trying not to put my conspiracy theorist tinfoil hat on, I think just one more example of a world that's going the wrong direction and of a world that doesn't accept what we believe. Crazy. I do have to thank my friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 3, Matt Taggett of Rec Broadheads and how you can save a few bucks on getting ready for the bow season.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Qwest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. The podcast version of the show available anywhere you get your podcasts, including my website and on my social media outlets as well. So glad you're along with us this weekend. As we, I got to say, have we officially wrapped up summer now? I mean, in some ways we haven't, but the kids have gone back to school. A lot of the kids have. And for many families, once the kids go back to school, everything changes because, you're tied into school and you don't have the flexibility. So maybe summer is over. Now, the summertime weather isn't over. The calendar doesn't say that. But, just around the corner, what does that mean? If summer is wrapping up, what does that mean just around the corner? Fall. Don't we love the fall? I love the fall. I love the cooler temps. I love the drop in humidity. I love the changing leaves. I love the fact that here in our state we have changing seasons. You know, midwinter, I don't mind jumping down to Florida for a few days to warm up a little bit and look at sandy beaches and open water. But would I want to live there? No, I don't want to live there. I want to live right here in Michigan. I love this state. I love the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle that is so strong in this state. I love the fact that many companies, many outdoor-related companies, are based here in Michigan. And I think it's a result of that passion for the outdoors. We have people with manufacturing backgrounds, manufacturing type brains where they know how to make stuff. I don't care if it's the boating industry, if it's the hunting industry, if it's the shooting industry. We got a lot of really good outdoor-based companies here in Michigan. I want to talk a little bit now about broadheads as we're getting ready for the fall hunting season. If you are a bow hunter, look at your gear. You know, you've got your crossbow or your compound or your recurve. You got your arrows, you got your quiver, you got your sights, you got your scopes, whatever it is. And then you got your broadhead. Because in my mind, the single most important piece of equipment that you have is that broadhead. Because that is the thing that ultimately makes contact with the animal to help you harvest that animal. Good broadhead does a good job. Bad broadhead stinks. The choice of broadheads is very, very personal. A broadhead you love, your buddy might not like, and vice versa. I will admit to having a soft spot in my heart for two broadhead companies, both of them family-owned, Michigan-based companies. G5 out in Memphis, out in the Thumb, and Rec Broadheads out of Frankenmuth. In the last few years, I've been hunting with Rec Broadheads. Haven't taken a deer with one yet, but I've taken a turkey, I've taken a bear, and I will take a Michigan whitetail with a Rec Broadhead this fall. Matt Taggett is one of the guys behind Rec Broadheads. He joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Matt, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. And I am looking forward to this fall season. We just put in some food plots, and it's getting to be that time of year, isn't it?
It sure is. And man, your pep talk there about summer coming to an end has me ultra excited.
Yeah. You don't want to miss or wish summertime away, but it gets to a point where it's okay. It's time for you to go now. Let's move on.
Yeah, you really hate to wish any season away, but that's the great part about Michigan here is we have all of them, and these few mornings we've had here lately have been kind of cool, and you kind of have a little sense of fall in the air already.
Let's talk about Rec. I'm curious, where does the name come from? R-E-K, Rec Broadheads.
Yeah, we were kind of just looking to come up with a name that just stood out a little bit and something that defined what we wanted our broadheads to do. And so Rec is spelled R-E-K. It's a little different than typical rec, but basically we want our broadheads to wreck anything in its path, and that's kind of where it came from. Why
even jump into this space? Because broadheads is a very competitive, very passionate among their users market. You're competing with some very, very big companies, some proven designs. Of all the things you guys could have jumped into, Matt, this is one of the areas I think would be a real challenge.
Well, it certainly is competitive. It's a very personal product, as you mentioned. And, I guess we've always taken pride in American manufacturing. My dad and I own the company, and he's worked in manufacturing for over 42 years. And we noticed a lot of companies began moving their manufacturing processes overseas. And with that, a lot of quality issues came into play. And we live to bow hunt. We travel around the country every fall bow hunting, and it's our passion. And we've shot every broadhead on the market. We've shot some really good broadheads, and we've also shot some really bad broadheads. So we wanted to put our brains to work and come up with the ultimate broadhead in our minds that had the perfect functionality, dependability, sharpness, all the key factors of a broadhead, and make it right here in the U.S., and that's what we've done.
So what were some of the things you saw on other heads that you just didn't like, you wanted to change?
Well, whether it be, the very thin blades that hit bone and either shatter or bend or, ferrules breaking. And then on the mechanical side of things, we've had just complete failure, whether it be a failure for the blades to deploy or failure as in the blades deploy in flight. We've seen it all. And we wanted to kind of fix some of these issues and make a broadhead that would not fail, and just kind of beefed up the materials, used premium materials, and really just an all-around solid head that would fly well, was razor sharp, and would just hold up to hard impacts.
And you decided to go with a chisel point as opposed to a cut-on contact blade. What was the thinking there, Matt?
Yeah, you'll notice we have 3 models out now, the FXD, the FX4, and the XB, and they all have the same chisel tip. And that chisel tip is, it does the job just what it looks like it would do, and that is just a punch through bone. It's a 416 hardened stainless steel tip, and its job is just to simply clear the way for the blades to come in and do their cutting, whether that be through flesh or bone.
The engineering that goes into these things, there must be a lot more behind the scenes, I think, than most people realize.
There is a lot goes on, and that's kind of where my dad falls into play there. He's the brains behind the engineering. I tend to come up with some pretty radical ideas here and there, and I kind of take them to him, and he puts them on the drawing board, and kind of we go from there and see if it's possible to attain what we were looking to do. And yeah, there's a lot of designing and changing, and a lot of different prototypes get cut and testing, and there's a lot to this process for sure.
How do you test them? Is it a matter of just going out and hunting with them, or can you actually, Matt, put these things in some kind of a wind tunnel and see if they plane or see how they fly, that type of thing?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of your just generic testing you'll see on YouTube videos and social media and whatnot of shooting through the ballistic gels, hard mediums, stuff of that nature. But then there's also, it's funny you bring up a wind tunnel. We're in the process of building a wind tunnel right now. So that's another test we're going to be able to accommodate and bring in-house here shortly. But really, it's just a lot of strength testing, a lot of flight testing, putting crossbows on a bench and shooting these things out to 80 and 100 yards and getting the flight that we need out of them. And it's kind of the funnest part of the process, honestly.
Well, and you mentioned crossbows. How do you come up with a head that'll fly and perform for a crossbow, and then at the other end of the spectrum, a recurve shooting 180 feet per second?
Exactly, that's it. And that was kind of something we wanted to incorporate into our lineup as well, as we wanted universal broadheads that would fly out of a compound, crossbow, longbow, recurve, all pretty much cover something for everybody, all out of one head. And there's, kind of a give and take there on things you have to engineer and design to work that way. But we've kind of got it dialed in, and we've got these heads flying really true and just very compatible for every piece of equipment out there.
And these different heads are at the website, recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com. Matt, we got to take a break. I'm going to ask you to hang tight through the break. And then after the break, I understand you come up with a way that you can let people... Well, let's let the cat out of the bag right now. How can we save some money on these wrecks?
Yeah, you jump on our website there, and if you don't have a dealer nearby, you can punch in the promo code Avery15, and that is the number 15, Avery15, and that will save you 15% off your order.
Very cool. I actually tried this just before we hit the air. I know it's working. How long will this continue on for, Matt?
I think we'll run her through the end of fall.
Oh, I like that. All right.
Here.
So go to recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com, R-E-K, recbroadheads.com. Click on the shop button. You can see the different heads there. When you go to checkout, use the promo code Avery15. That's Avery15, Avery15, and you can save 15% on these rec heads. We're talking with Matt Taggett of Rec Broadheads. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, but when we come back, more with Matt on, broadheads in general. What should you be looking for? Specifically, their models, expandable, fixed blade. What's the best for you? And again, we'll talk more about saving some money by going to the website, recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com. Use the promo code Avery15. That's Avery15. We'll take a break. Lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. you can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. You can hear us just down the road in Muskegon, WKBZ 1090 AM. Let's jump over to the other side of the state. Tawas, WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. In fact, you can hear the show twice each weekend on WIOS, as well as some of our other affiliate stations as well. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. Also, let Reader maintain your property. Looking at the change in seasons here now and what that means from beyond a hunting or fishing perspective, right? It means that eventually leaves are going to fall. It means that you're going to have some fall cleanup. You're going to have to prune back the trees. You're going to have to prune back the shrubs. And you could do that. You could do that. I could do that. I've got the tools to do it. I have the ability to do it. But you know what? I don't want to. I want to spend that precious time doing something else. So every hour that the guys from Reader come over and work on my place is another hour I can spend on the water or in the woods. I don't care if it's fall mowing, if it's taking care of the sprinkler system, if it's shutting it down. I don't care if it's, fall cleanup, or even eventually cleaning that white stuff off your driveway and sidewalk. The folks at Reader can take care of it and do a wonderful job. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. Want to follow up now on our earlier conversation with Matt Taggett of Rec Broadheads, Michigan-based, family-owned Rec Broadheads. The website, recbroadheads.com, R-E-K, broadheads.com. If you want to see what Rec Broadheads look like, you can go to the website, recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com. If you don't have a dealer in your area, for example, if you live next to Jay's Sporting Goods, I would just tell you, go to Jay's and look at them. But if you don't have a dealer nearby, go to that website, recbroadheads.com. If you decide to order online, use the promo code Avery15. That's Avery15, and save 15% on these Rec Broadheads. I've been shooting Rec Broadheads for the last several years. And, Matt, I got to tell you, I think you guys are doing a great job. You're making a great quality, accurate, and tough product, and I think that's all you can ask out of a broadhead.
Well, we appreciate that. That's, really just the goal with the whole thing. Like I mentioned, we love to bow hunt. We wanted to design products that we, first and foremost, could trust before ever bringing anything to market. We wanted something that we would use and something we believed in, and then, bring them to market.
And the first one out of the box was an expandable, which is kind of an interesting decision to go that way first.
It was, and I think that's because we started down that road because we saw so many flaws with some of the other expandables on the market, and we wanted to build an expandable that really just held up and was designed to cut through bone and keep moving forward and not break a blade or break a ferrule in half. And the other neat feature of it is that expandable head is actually a modular platform where you can turn that into a 2-blade fixed head as well, just by swapping out the blades.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat concept. If you're a family of bow hunters, swapping broadheads back and forth, or if you're shooting a crossbow and compound, or if you're heading west to hunt elk and maybe the outfitter doesn't allow expandables in camp, so all you have to do is swap out your blades. You don't have to buy a whole new pack of broadheads.
I was shooting the expandables, the XPs, and they make a tremendous damage. But I got to be honest, Matt, the problem I was having is that I would, and they don't deploy when they're not supposed to, but what I would do is when I was screwing around with them or putting them in a quiver out or whatever, I don't even know how I did it, but they would come open on me, and then I couldn't figure out how to put them back together. Now, that's user error on my part, but I know you've also tweaked that design now too, haven't you?
Yeah, so our first generation of the spring retention lock there, it's hard to explain without showing somebody what I'm actually talking about there, but the legs on that lock were so short. So, and we had a handful of complaints of people saying, they're just too small to lock into the tabs. So we lengthened one of those locks out pretty substantial. And now you're able to put that longer one in first, put the smaller one in, rotate it clockwise in. The tip holds it in place, and then it has a little snap-off feature. We include a little tool with every kit, and you're able to just snap off the excess on that longer leg there, and it gets you right back to that aerodynamic flush leg as previously, but it just makes installation so much easier, and that was just a flaw that we didn't think of from the beginning, and we addressed it this year.
Well, maybe I should take a second look at those expandables, but what I did, as you know, was I said I don't want to deal with that anymore, so I went to the FX4. So far, I've only taken I took a turkey and a bear with it so far this spring. Performs very well, flies very well, and I guess I was worried because maybe it didn't have the diameter of some of the heads I was used to in the past, but you got those 4 blades on there, so they do a darn good job.
Yeah, that's got an 1 1/8 inch main blade on that, and a 3/4 inch bleeder, but man, that is probably, we launched that head last year, and it has become our best seller.
Really?
I think a lot of people are going back to the fixed head market, and people are looking for a fixed head that will fly true, and that is the biggest compliment we get on that head is just how well it flies. We don't believe that you should have to sight in your broadheads separately from your field points every fall. We want to be able to hit right where you're hitting with your field points and call it a day, and people are really liking that head.
I can't let that go without coming back to that, because you just made a huge statement, and non-bow hunters aren't going to pick up on this. But you say you should be able to sight your rig in with your field points, go to your broadheads, and not make any changes?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of factors there. The guys that do a lot of tuning with their setups will understand that there's a lot of different changes you can make to your bow. But if your bow is in tune, these things are going to fly exactly as your field points do, and that's something we wanted to accomplish. And that's why we have a smaller bleeder blade on there. We originally had the 4 blades all of the same size, and we just weren't getting the flight we wanted. We're getting a little bit of planing on that, and so we cut it down to the 3/4 inch bleeder, and these things are flying like darts, and people are ultra impressed with them.
So when you test these, how do you do it? Do you have a rig or a crossbow in a vise of some kind and watch this thing with high-speed cameras, or what does this look like?
Yeah, it's typically just a crossbow on a bench or mounted in one of the bog kind of vise tripods there. We kind of get a stable platform that we're not moving, and we just start stepping the target out. We take our initial shots at 20 yards, and we move it to 40, 60, 80, get up to 100 yards and see where these things are hitting. And, it kind of tells us what we have and if we need to make changes. And we don't have any ultra-speed cameras or anything of that sort that kind of tracks the flight. I mean, those are all things we want to kind of get more videos, and as we grow this company and dive into, deeper into the marketing aspect of it, and kind of shoot some videos and some how-to videos and show people how these things really work. We want to go down that path, but it's a lot of just testing as you would see on some of the other channels on YouTube, and just kind of the guts of it is just shooting these at distance and shooting them through hard mediums and kind of starting off that way.
Well, I suspect you would never recommend shooting an animal at long distance, but how far out have you tested these things?
So we've tested them to 100 yards. That's kind of our cap. Of course, I would not recommend shooting animals over, personally myself, over 50 yards is kind of my limit. I know there's some archers out there better than I, but we just to kind of see how they fly, we test them out to 100 yards, and that's kind of our test, and we are quite impressed with the results we see, and not all of them have been that way. We've had to eliminate a lot of options and make some changes to get to where our line is now, but every time we launch a new product, we are fully, we have full faith in that product's going to perform the way we want to see it.
Will there be new products coming down the road?
There is a lot of new products on the table right now in design, in prototyping, in testing, to include more than just broadheads. And the company is growing, and we just want to keep investing back into the company and growing the product line and seeing where we can take this thing.
Will you be field testing those pieces of gear, these products, this fall?
Yeah, yep. We're actually heading out on our first hunt next Tuesday, and some of those products will be heading with us. How
cool is that? That is really something. I mean, I don't know what your background is. I know your dad is a manufacturing guy, but because you have a love for the outdoors and because you have a love for bow hunting, to be able to turn this now into the business, what an opportunity that is.
Yeah, it's been a really fun process, and it's obviously, something I take a lot of passion in, and kind of from the get-go for us, it was never really, I guess, about making, money. At the end of the day, you have to make money to keep your business afloat, but it's really about just making great products that you believe in and bringing them to people to hopefully increase and make their hunting experience better. That's really at the end of the day, that's what keeps us going.
Again, I'm on your website, recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com. And before I let you go, I got to ask about these practice heads. Now, you have told me that these things fly just like your broadheads, but that was a conversation in reference to the expandables. Will they also fly just like the FX4s?
Yeah, with those FX4s flying is so true, and I put my word on that, flying true to your field points. Our practice heads will also be right there. The practice head was kind of designed to mimic the flight of the XP, which is right there with your field points, but more or less just to give you that peace of mind. That way, you can go out and practice and not have to reset or dull your blades every time that you're target practicing.
And with the FX4, I mean, why not just shoot the broadhead itself, because you can swap those blades out and put fresh ones in when you start to hunt, right?
And that was our theory there.
Yeah.
It's just to shoot the actual heads, maybe have a set of practice blades that you're not afraid to dull up a little bit. Those blades are super easy to interchange. There's no pins, screws, anything that holds those in. The tip screws right off, the blades slide in, and that's it.
Well, Matt, congrats on your success so far. I really feel like there's a lot of good stuff ahead for Rec Broadheads. I appreciate you guys putting in that promo code, and I'll let people know about it.
Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate you having us on.
All right, have a good season. Matt Taggart of Rec Broadheads, recbroadheads.com, recbroadheads.com, R-E-K, recbroadheads.com. If you want to save on Rec Broadheads and you don't have a dealer nearby, now, I'll make this very clear. If you got a dealer nearby, go to the dealer. Now, you're not going to be able to get the promo code, but you're going to have the broadheads in your hands right there. If you go to the website, recbroadheads.com, click on the shop button, S-H-O-P. When you go to check out, put in the promo code Avery15. That's Avery15, and you can save 15% on these Rec Broadheads we've been talking about. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show, talk about a few more things, and wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the Outdoor Magazine Show. I hope you can make it a part of your week every week. The broadcast version of the show, preferably, if not the podcast version of the show. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine radio show in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now, and I have a logo behind me that says it's the Outdoor Magazine studio, just for these 3 hours, just for this little corner of the building for these 3 hours. I'm here with Jonathan Dent. John doing a wonderful job, as always, and I do appreciate it. Oh, looking back on our guests this week, an interesting mix. And that's, it's always, when I put the shows together, I start out with kind of a blank slate. And some things I look at, okay, where are we in the seasons here in Michigan, as far as the 4 seasons or the hunting or fishing seasons? Okay, what are people doing right now? What will people be doing soon? What are people interested in? And then I look at, okay, was there anything this week that happened out of the ordinary? Was there anything that we didn't expect? Any breaking news? Like, I guarantee you, if we get news that there's going to be a wolf hunt this fall in Michigan, I will cover it on the next Outdoor Magazine radio show. I don't think that's going to happen, but I would certainly cover it. And then I also take into account any things that I might have been involved in personally this past week that I think might be of interest to you. if you weren't with us in the first hour, I was talking about a situation where we were putting in some food plots on a piece of leased property that we have in the county that we live. My son James, granddaughter Addison, and me. Now, when I say we, I'm talking like 90% James, 9% Addison, and 1% Avery. You know, the big guy. Okay, so that's the hierarchy there. I'm there for moral support and backup. But we had a situation where we had an accident. Fortunately, everything turned out okay. But my granddaughter Addison was driving a tractor that James had rented with a cultivator behind it to knock down the ferns and dig up the top couple of inches of soil, of dirt, so we could plant. And this is on us, this is on me, because I didn't walk that clearing like I should have to check it for danger. And Addie was driving along, she couldn't see it, and she dropped the front wheel of that tractor into a big hole, and it tipped the tractor over. I had my back to her when it was happening. James had his back to her. We heard her yell. We turn around, and there is the tractor on its side. The motor was still running. The cultivator still spinning in the back. And my mind immediately flashes back to my growing up on a farm when tractors rolling over, tipping over, was not unheard of, and people got hurt. And I lost a classmate in high school, lost him from something like this. So in that split second, before you know the status, that's where my mind went. Oh my God, my granddaughter just rolled a tractor. What's next? Fortunately, and I have no doubt in my mind, this is because God was watching over us. And end of explanation. But for some reason, she decided to put her seatbelt on in the tractor seat. I didn't even know tractors had seatbelts. She put her seatbelt on. Also, this particular rental tractor had a steel, I don't want to call it a cage, but it supported the roof of the thing, and it was, really heavy steel supports. Again, going back to my frame of reference, we didn't have seatbelts on tractors, and we didn't, there was nothing above the tractor. So when a tractor rolled, it rolled right over. So thank God, literally, Addison had her seatbelt on, and when the tractor rolled, she stayed in the seat, and I'll call it a roll cage, for lack of a better term, the roll cage stopped the tractor from going all the way over. Boy, was that scary. She's okay. Everything was fine. So you can bet when something like that happens in my life, I'm going to talk about it. Or the situation with Lance Valentine when he hits something in the water of Saginaw Bay on his Angler Qwest. Those are the types of things that hopefully we can learn from, or at least keep in mind to know that, when we're outside, you can't let you can let your guard down, but you can't become oblivious, right? You still got to keep your wits about you. Wow, that was something else. Everything turned out all right. Now we're just waiting for rain, although we did get some, so it's all good. My website, by the way, is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't hesitate to check out my social media outlets. I do a Behind the Mic every Wednesday morning at 8:45 here from the radio studio. I do a Wednesday night live every Wednesday night at 7. Often from my home studio, sometimes out in the field. Would encourage you to check that out. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. Oh, and don't forget, save 15% on Rec Broadheads. Go to the website, recbroadheads.com. Use the promo code Avery15. Dixie Dave coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Appreciate you being along with us. If you are a first-time listener, thank you. Hope you can stick around. If you are a long-time listener, thank you for your loyalty. I appreciate that. If you have been with us before, you know I like to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, and he never lets me down. And he's with us once again. David, welcome back. How are you?
Really good. Is my reception okay?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. You left me a voicemail the other day, and it was really bad. It was really garbled, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag about what that's about, but we'll talk more about that in the future, I suspect. But you sound really good right now, Dave.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have a walleye royale, which is in fruit. We've done this for the show with pheasant, venison tenderloin, and now I'm doing it with walleye.
Let's hear it.
Well, we need about 6 to 8 ounces of walleye fillet, boneless, skinless. You could use up to a pint of raspberries, fresh or frozen, a couple of beaten up eggs, a sheet of puff pastry, cut in quarters, and then you want to roll it out just a little bit because this is going to be, you're going to stuff this puff pastry. And it's not quite as delicate as a phyllo dough, so you don't have to worry about using it up immediately. You need 3 ounces of razzmatazz schnapps, 8-ounce jar of chicken gravy, a couple of tablespoons of butter, 2 ounces of cheddar cheese, 2 ounces of Munster, both of them shredded, and an 8-ounce package of warm Philadelphia cream cheese. That'd be room temperature. So in a mixing bowl, add all the cheeses and the schnapps and the butter. Mix it really, really well, You might even want to, if you have a KitchenAid, you could put it in the KitchenAid, and that would really work great. Because you don't want, you want the raspberries blended in real good. So you're going to cut the fillets in half, and you're going to use the head part for the bottom, and you're going to turn it so that the skin side would be down, and then you're going to spoon this cheese mixture in the center of it. And then you might want to put a few berries on the inside of it, too. And then put that other piece of filet on the top. You want to kind of squeeze it together and almost form like a ball if you possibly can. And then place it in the center of the dough. And then take them eggs after you beat them up and paint the outside edge real, real good. And then you're going to fold this all in. And so it forms an airtight and watertight seal, kind of. You don't want the juice to leak out too much. And then place it with the folded side down on a baking sheet. Paint the top of this with that egg wash again. And it's going to take about 15 to 20 minutes, more like about 15, depending on how thick it is and how hot your oven is. When it's nice and golden brown over the top and you might have a little bit of the cheese oozing out, then it should be done. So while this is going on in a nice heavy bottom saute a pan, you need about 3 ounces of raspberry schnapps, the rest of the berries, the gravy, and cook it down so it's nice, thick, and creamy, And then when you go to serve this, you're going to strain in a hair-fine sieve. You're going to strain the sauce, and then you're going to lay each one of these fillets on top. It's the most impressive dish you can imagine. Looks kind of like a fish Wellington, and you're going to impress your diners, I'm telling you what. And it's really easy. It might sound complicated, but it's not.
Yeah, it sounds a little more involved, but I will certainly take your word for it. And David, don't you have, I saw something the other day, don't you have an event coming up here soon with Jimmy Gretzinger?
I do. That's on October, let's see.
Oh, it's down the road. It's down the road then.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to be at the Frankenmuth Conservation Club, and they're limiting it to around 200 people. So I would call Delta College and get tickets reserved for that because there's only going to be 200 sold. That's
a PBS Michigan Out of Doors fundraiser thing, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Delta College, and then I'm doing one on the 14th. For the DNR, you could call the DNR, and that's going to be in Chesaning on the 14th of September. So you might want to try to get in touch with the DNR, and I could give you the phone number next week, or I'll give you the phone number. You can put it up.
Hey, I thought you were retired. What's this all about?
Oh, I had promised in advance, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to cut boredom.
I'm sure you are. Good for you. And, of course, you'll be involved in our Trinity Monitor event coming up. I mean, it's a long ways down the road, but coming up in March, you'll be a part of that again, too, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, my friend. Well, listen, I'm glad you're keeping busy. I appreciate that recipe. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. But you know what? You are too. Because honestly, if you weren't listening, there would be I wouldn't be able to do the show. There'd be no reason to do it. There would be no market for it. There would be no demand for it. I wouldn't be able to get airtime. I wouldn't be able to get advertising partners. And it would all be for naught. So you are the key piece. You are the cog, the main cog in this whole machine. And I do appreciate it. My name is Mike Avery. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't forget about this new Rec Broadheads discount. Go to RecBroadheads.com, RecBroadheads.com. Use the promo code Avery15 and save 15%. Check out the Wednesday Night Live segments, the Behind the Mic segments, and my social media feeds as well. And I will talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.